November 14th, 1978. A man steps off Aeroflot Flight 342 into the amber lights of Rome's Fiumicino Airport. His passport identifies him as Dmitry Volkov, a textile merchant from Leningrad. What he didn't know is the CIA knows differently, and he's about to fall into a trap. The name in their files is codename Raven, a KGB assassin responsible for at least 9 confirmed kills across 3 continents. And somewhere in the city of ancient secrets, his most important mission target is waiting. The story begins 3 weeks earlier in the basement of the American Embassy in Bonn, West Germany. A signals intelligence officer is reviewing intercepted communications from the Soviet embassy when a particular message catches his attention. The encryption is different, the routing unusual. This is not standard diplomatic traffic. After 48 hours of cryptographic work, the message is partially decoded. It contains a single word that makes the intelligence officer's blood run cold. Raven. Within the CIA, Raven is not just a code name. It is a ghost story, a legend whispered in the corridors of Langley. For 3 years, Western intelligence agencies have been tracking a pattern, a shadow that appears before defectors disappear, before assets stop reporting, before bodies are found in hotels from Beirut to Brussels. The pattern has a signature. No witnesses, no evidence, deaths that look like accidents or natural causes. And always, in the weeks before, there are reports of a man, mid-30s, athletic build, unremarkable features. A man who could be anyone. The Bonn intercept changes everything. For the first time, they have advance warning. Raven is being deployed. The target, unknown. The location, Rome. The timeline, imminent. Thomas Calloway has been the CIA station chief in Rome for 2 years. He is 51 years old, a veteran of operations in Berlin, Vienna, and Prague. He knows the game. He also knows that Rome is different in other European capitals. The Cold War plays out in clearly defined territories. East Berlin versus West Berlin. Communist Prague versus the American Embassy. But Rome is chaos. The Italian Communist Party is the largest in Western Europe. Soviet intelligence operates with near impunity. The city is a marketplace where secrets are traded like Renaissance art. When the cable from Langley arrives on November 10th, marked eyes only, Calloway reads it twice. Then he picks up a secure phone. Within 6 hours, 4 CIA officers are pulled from routine assignments and briefed on Operation Roman Holiday. They are given photographs, physical descriptions, known aliases. They are told that somewhere in this city, a killer is coming, and their job is to find him before he finds his target. The team is small by necessity. Large surveillance operations are easy to detect. Raven is a professional. He will be watching for watchers. The lead surveillance agent is Michael Torres, 32 years old, fluent in Italian and Russian. He has been conducting street operations in Rome for 18 months. He knows the rhythms of the city, the patterns of crowds, the sight lines and dead ends that make surveillance possible or impossible. The second agent is Catherine Duchamp, a French national working for the CIA under unofficial cover as a freelance journalist. She has a face that blends into European crowds. She can follow a target through a department store, a museum, a restaurant, and never be remembered. The photographer is someone the team calls Walker. His real name is classified even from the operation files. He carries cameras hidden in briefcases, in cigarette packs, in the spine of a hardcover book. He can document a meeting from 300 meters away. The driver is Giovanni, a local asset recruited 5 years earlier. He knows every street in Rome, every shortcut, every place where a car can wait without attracting attention. He does not know what the operation is about. He does not need to know. Calloway's orders are simple but brutal. Find Raven. Follow him. Do not lose him. Do not let him know he is being followed. And most importantly, identify his target before the assassination occurs. There is one problem. They do not know when Raven is arriving. For 3 days, CIA officers rotate through Fiumicino Airport. They watch the Aeroflot flights from Moscow. They watch the connections from Prague, from East Berlin, from Budapest. They photograph passengers. They run faces through recognition protocols. Nothing. On the fourth day, November 14th, Torres is on station when Aeroflot Flight 342 lands from Moscow via Prague. He watches the passengers disembark. Businessmen, diplomats, tourists, an elderly couple, a group of students, and then a man traveling alone, mid-30s, dark hair, wearing a gray overcoat and carrying a single leather suitcase. He moves through the terminal with the posture of someone who has traveled this route many times. Confident but not hurried, Torres lifts his camera. The telephoto lens captures the man's face as he presents his passport to Italian customs. The name on the document, Dmitry Volkov. Occupation, textile merchant. The photograph is transmitted within minutes to the embassy. 20 minutes later, the response comes back. Facial recognition match. 87% probability. This is Raven. The game has begun. Following someone through an airport is one of the most difficult surveillance operations. The spaces are too open. The sight lines too long. A trained operative can spot a tail within minutes. Torres does not follow Raven through the terminal. Instead, he moves ahead, positioning himself near the taxi stand. Catherine Duchamp is already outside, pretending to wait for a ride. Walker is in a cafe with a view of the exits. Raven emerges from customs 45 minutes after landing. He does not look around. He does not hesitate. He walks directly to the taxi queue and takes the first available car. Giovanni is 3 vehicles behind in an unmarked Fiat. Torres is already in the passenger seat. They follow at a distance as the taxi enters the autostrada towards central Rome. The route is direct. No counter-surveillance maneuvers. No sudden turns. Raven's taxi takes him to the Termini station area, one of the busiest neighborhoods in Rome. The car stops in front of modest pensioni on Via Magenta, a street lined with cheap hotels and immigrant-run shops. Raven pays the driver and enters the building. He does not look back. Torres and Giovanni park 2 blocks away. Within 30 minutes, they have confirmed the pensioni's layout. 3 floors, 22 rooms, 1 entrance on the street, a service exit in the rear alley. Catherine Duchamp enters the lobby, pretending to inquire about rooms. The clerk tells her they are fully booked. She notices the guest register on the desk. Room 14, 3rd floor, registered to D. Volkov. That night, 2 CIA officers maintain surveillance from a rented apartment across the street. They photograph the window of room 14. The lights come on at 7 in the evening. They stay on until 11, then darkness. Raven is settling in. But for what? The next morning, November 15th, Station Chief Calloway convenes an emergency meeting at the embassy. The question is simple. Who is Raven here to kill? The CIA maintains files on 12 high-value Soviet defectors currently living under Western protection. 3 of them are in Italy. 1 is in Rome. His name is Anatoly Krasnikov, 54 years old, former KGB officer assigned to the 2nd Chief Directorate, responsible for internal counterintelligence. On May 3, 1978, Krasnikov walked into the American embassy in Vienna and asked for asylum. What Krasnikov brought with him was more valuable than any microfilm or code book. He brought names, the identities of 42 Soviet illegals embedded across Western Europe, deep cover agents who had spent decades building false identities, worming their way into governments, corporations, universities. In the 6 months since his defection, Krasnikov's information has led to the arrest or expulsion of 18 Soviet agents. The operations are still ongoing. The KGB is hemorrhaging intelligence networks it took 20 years to build. And the man responsible is living in a CIA safe house on the edge of Villa Borghese, one of Rome's most elegant neighborhoods. Calloway spread the map across the conference table. The safe house is marked with a red pen. The pensione where Raven is staying is marked with a black pen. The distance between them, 3 kilometers. The pattern fits. Raven is in Rome to kill Anatoly Krasnikov. But there's a problem. The safe house is secure. Armed guards, controlled access, regular security sweeps. Krasnikov leave the house only for debriefing sessions at the embassy, and then only in armored vehicles with full escort. How does Raven plan to reach him? For 3 days, Raven moves through Rome like any other tourist. He visits the Colosseum, standing in line with German tour groups and Japanese photographers. He eats lunch at a trattoria near the Pantheon. He walks along the Tiber, feeding pigeons in the shadow of Castel San Angelo. The surveillance team follows. Torres on foot, Catherine in parallel, Walker documenting from a distance. Giovanni in the car, always within radio range. Raven appears relaxed. He carries a camera and takes photographs of monuments. He buys postcards. He sits in cafes reading Italian newspapers with a pocket dictionary. But the CIA team sees what casual observers cannot. The tourist behavior is cover. Raven is conducting reconnaissance. On the second day, he visits the Vatican museums. He spends 4 hours inside, moving slowly through the galleries. The surveillance team cannot follow closely in the controlled environment. They position officers at the exits and wait. When Raven emerges, Walker captures a photograph that will later become classified evidence. Raven is photographed standing in St. Peter's Square, but his camera is pointed not at the basilica, but at the street behind him. He is taking counter-surveillance photographs, checking for tails. On the third day, November 17th, Raven takes a metro to the Flaminio station, then walks into the Villa Borghese Gardens. He strolls the paths for 90 minutes. At one point, he sits on a bench for 20 minutes, apparently resting. Torres watches from behind a newspaper. The bench where Raven sits offers a clear view of a residential street bordering the park. Number 47 Via Pensiana, the safe house. Raven is not resting. He is observing guard rotations. That afternoon, something changes. Raven walks the Chiesa di San Giovanni dei Fiorentini, a Baroque church near the Tiber. He enters at 3:15 in the afternoon. Catherine Duchamp watches from across the street. 10 minutes pass. 20, 30, Raven does not emerge. She radios Torres. They have a decision to make. If Raven is making a contact inside the church, they need to know. But entering the same building breaks one of the fundamental rules of surveillance. It increases the chance of detection exponentially. Torres makes the call. He enters the church. The interior is dim, lit by candles and stained glass. A handful of elderly women kneel in prayer. A priest moves through the shadows, and there, in a pew near the side altar, is Raven. He is alone. His hands are folded. His head is bowed. To any observer, he is praying. Torres moves to a pew in the rear. Genuflex kneels. He watches. 45 minutes later, Raven stands and leaves. He does not approach anyone. He does not leave anything behind. Torres waits 5 minutes, then follows. Outside, Catherine has maintained visual contact. Raven walks directly back to his pensione. That night, Torres files a report with single question. Was the church visit religious or operational? Did Raven leave a signal for a handler? Did he retrieve instructions from a dead drop concealed in the church's architecture? Calloway orders the church placed under surveillance. For the next 24 hours, CIA officers will photograph everyone who enters or exits. The net is tightening, but the target is still a ghost. On the morning of November 18th, Raven changes his pattern. He leaves the pensione early, takes a bus across the river into Trastevere. He visits a tobacco shop, buys cigarettes and a newspaper. Then he begins to walk. What follows is a masterclass in counter-surveillance. Raven enters a department store through the front entrance and exits through the loading dock. He takes a taxi for 3 blocks, pays, and immediately enters the metro. He rides 2 stops, exits, crosses a platform, and boards a train going back the way he came. Torres and Catherine struggle to maintain contact. The surveillance is loose by necessity, but loose surveillance means gaps. For 20 minutes, they lose him completely. When Raven resurfaces, he is sitting at an outdoor cafe near the Piazza Navona. He is not alone. Across the table sits a man in his 60s, thin and gray, wearing a priest's collar. The 2 men speak for 15 minutes. No documents are exchanged. No packages. They could be discussing theology. Walker, positioned in a gallery window across the piazza, captures 6 photographs. The telephoto lens is good enough to show facial features, not good enough to read lips. The meeting ends. Raven pays for both coffees. The men part without shaking hands. The priest walks toward the river. Raven returns to his pensione. By evening, the CIA has identified the contact. His name is Father Giuseppe Mariani, age 68, parish priest at a small church in the Prati district, born in Rome, no known political affiliations, and according to Italian intelligence files shared with the CIA, Father Mariani has been a KGB support agent for 23 years. Suddenly, the operation takes on new dimensions. Raven is not working alone. He has local support, and that means weapons, safe houses, documents, everything an assassin might need. Calloway faces a choice. Should they arrest Father Mariani? Interrogation might reveal the operation, but it would also alert the KGB that their plan is compromised. He decides to watch and wait, but he orders round-the-clock surveillance on the priest. The question now is not whether Raven will strike. It is when, 2 days later, November 20th, the surveillance team follows Raven to the Protestant cemetery, a garden of graves near the Pyramid of Cestius where Keats and Shelley are buried. It is a quiet place, frequented by poetry lovers and tourists seeking respite from the city's noise. Raven enters at 11 in the morning. He walks slowly among the headstones, pausing occasionally to read inscriptions. He stops at the grave of John Keats and stands motionless for several minutes. Then he kneels. His hand reaches into the flowers placed at the base of the monument. When he stands, his hand is empty, but his coat pocket hangs slightly heavier. Walker captures the sequence in 8 photographs. It is a textbook dead drop. Something was hidden in those flowers, something small, and Raven has retrieved it. Within an hour, a CIA officer enters the cemetery and examines the flower arrangement. Hidden beneath the roses was a waterproof package, now gone, but traces remain. Cosmoline, the preservative used to protect weapons during storage. Raven now has a gun. That night, Calloway orders the safe house security increased. Additional guards. Patrol routes altered. Krasnikov is to remain inside until further notice. But Krasnikov is not a cooperative asset. He has been living under protection for 6 months. The isolation is driving him to paranoia. He complains constantly. He demands freedom. He wants to walk in a park, to eat in restaurants, to feel human again. On November 22nd, Krasnikov's CIA handler files a report warning that the defector is becoming unstable. He believes he is being watched. He claims someone followed him during his last embassy debriefing. His behavior is erratic. He is being watched, of course, by the CIA team assigned to protect him. But he does not know this, and his paranoia is making him unpredictable. The handler recommends psychological evaluation. Calloway denies the request. There is no time. November 23rd. Raven checks out his pensione. He takes a taxi to Termini Station and purchases a train ticket to Milan. Departure. The following morning at 9:15, the surveillance team reports this to Calloway. The station chief studies the information. Is Raven aboard the mission? Has he detected the surveillance? Or is this misdirection? Calloway orders increased surveillance. If Raven boards that train, they will follow him to Milan, but he suspects the ticket is a feint. That afternoon, Walker photographs something that confirms Calloway's instinct. Raven enters a small hotel near the Colosseum and emerges 20 minutes later. But the hotel's registration records, obtained through Italian police contacts, show no guest named Volkov. Raven has rented a second room under a different identity, a fallback position. He is not leaving Rome. He is preparing for the operation. On November 24th, the surveillance net catches something unexpected. A second tail. Torres notices him first. A man in a leather jacket, early 40s, moving in parallel to Raven as the assassin walks through the Villa Borghese gardens. The man maintains professional distance. He does not look at Raven directly, but his positioning is too precise to be coincidence. Catherine confirms it an hour later. Same man, different clothing, still following Raven. By evening, the CIA has photographed the unknown surveillance operative from 6 different angles. The images are transmitted to Langley for analysis. The response arrives within hours. The man is KGB. Name, Victor Orloff, Second Chief Directorate, Counterintelligence Specialist. The revelation is stunning. The KGB is conducting counter-surveillance on their own assassin. Raven is being watched by his own service. Calloway assembles his team to analyze the implications. There are three possibilities. First, standard KGB procedure. They are ensuring Raven maintains discipline and does not defect or go rogue. Second, the KGB suspect American surveillance and is checking whether their operation is compromised. Third, internal KGB politics. A faction within Soviet intelligence wants the operation to fail. They are preparing to expose or eliminate Raven. Whatever the reason, the geometry of the operation has become impossibly complex. The CIA is watching Raven. The KGB is watching Raven. And somewhere in this hall of mirrors, a defector's life hangs in the balance. On November 25th, Anatoly Krasnikov makes a request that throws the entire operation into crisis. He wants to attend the opera. The Teatro dell'Opera di Roma is presenting Puccini's Tosca. Krasnikov explains to his CIA handler that he has not heard live music in 6 months. He is suffocating in the safe house. He will go insane if he remains imprisoned any longer. The handler refuses. Too dangerous. Too exposed. Krasnikov responds that if he is not permitted this one evening of normalcy, he will stop cooperating entirely. No more debriefings. No more intelligence. The CIA can find another defector. The threat reaches Calloway's desk within hours. He faces an impossible decision. Krasnikov's intelligence is too valuable to lose. But taking him to a public venue is operationally insane. The Opera House seats 1,400 people, 1,000 places for a sniper, 1,000 faces where an assassin could hide. But if Krasnikov stops cooperating, 6 months of debriefings and 18 rolled-up Soviet networks mean nothing. Calloway approves the opera visit, but he transforms into a trap. The plan is elegant. Krasnikov will attend the opera in a private box with armed guards, but the real Krasnikov will be moved to a secure location before the performance begins. A CIA officer of similar build and age will sit in his place, wearing identical clothing. Meanwhile, the surveillance teams will blanket the opera house. If Raven is planning to strike, he will reveal himself, and the CIA will be ready. Tickets are obtained for the November 26th performance. Krasnikov is told the security plan. He agrees, grateful simply to have won the argument. November 26, 1978. 7 hours before curtain. Raven emerges from his hotel room. He is wearing a dark suit, white shirt, no tie. He carries nothing. He walks to a barbershop and pays for a haircut and shave. He eats lunch at a restaurant near the Trevi Fountain. He returns to his hotel and does not emerge for 3 hours. The surveillance team maintains distant observation. Torres is positioned in a cafe across the street. Catherine is in a parked car with sight lines on both exits. Walker is on a rooftop with telephoto lens. At 5 in the evening, Raven leaves the hotel. He is now wearing formal attire. Black tie, polished shoes. He looks like any Roman businessman heading to an evening engagement. He walks 6 blocks to the opera house. He presents a ticket at the entrance. Orchestra section, row 12, seat 34. The CIA team tracks him inside. Torres is in the lobby, disguised as a theater usher. Catherine is in the balcony. Walker is backstage, hidden among the lighting crews. At 6:30, the performance begins. The house lights dim. The orchestra plays the opening bars of Tosca. 1,400 people settle into their seats. And in row 12, Raven sits motionless, his hands folded in his lap, his eyes focused on the stage, but not on the singers. On the private boxes along the left wall. On box 7, where a man who looks like Anatoly Krasnikov sits surrounded by bodyguards. Intermission arrives. The house lights rise. The audience stands, stretching, moving toward the lobby for drinks and conversation. Raven remains seated for 30 seconds. Then he stands and walks toward the aisle. Torres, watching from the lobby entrance, keys his radio. Raven is mobile. Catherine, in the upper balcony, has a high ground view. She watches Raven move against the flow of the crowd, heading not toward the lobby but deeper into the theater. toward the corridor that leads to the private boxes. This is the moment. He is going for the kill, but then Raven stops. He turns left into the men's restroom. The door swings closed behind him. Torres moves immediately. He cannot enter, not without risking exposure, but he positions himself where he can see anyone exiting. 5 minutes pass. 7, 10. The lobby is emptying as patrons return to their seats. The 5-minute warning chimes. 12 minutes after entering, Raven emerges from the restroom. His clothing is unchanged. His demeanor is calm. He returns to his seat as the house lights dim for Act 2. Torres reports the development to Calloway, who is monitoring from a command post 3 blocks away. The station chief's response is immediate. He was testing us, seeing if we would react. And they did. By positioning Torres near the restroom corridor, they confirmed their presence. Raven now knows he is under surveillance. The operation is blown. Or is it? At 9:43, as the final act of Tosca builds towards tragic conclusion, Anatoly Krasnikov sits in the secure room of a CIA facility 5 kilometers from the Opera House. He is drinking tea and reading a Russian novel. He is safe. He is bored. And he has no idea that his life is about to be saved by a decision made 3 hours earlier. At the Opera House, the performance ends. Applause. Curtain calls. The audience rises to leave. Raven stands with them, files out into the November night, walks 3 blocks, and hails a taxi. The surveillance team follows. Torres and Catherine in one vehicle. Giovanni driving. Walker in the second car behind them. Raven's taxi heads east toward the Villa Borghese area. The route is familiar. He is heading toward the neighborhood where the CIA safe house is located. Calloway, monitoring from the command post, issues new orders. Do not intercept. Let him go to the house. We have people in position. Because while the theater operation was theater, the real trap was set elsewhere. Earlier that day, Calloway ordered the safe house evacuated except for a team of 6 armed officers. The building's exterior was left unchanged. Lights on timers, guards on their usual patrol routes. But inside, it was an ambush point. If Raven had fallen for the opera diversion, if he had attempted to strike at the decoy in the theater box, it would have been a spectacular failure. But Calloway suspected that Raven was smarter than that. The opera was never the kill zone. It was reconnaissance. The real plan. Wait until the entire CIA security detail was focused on protecting Krasnikov at the opera. Then strike at the undefended safe house. Except the house is not undefended. It is a trap. Raven's taxi stops 2 blocks from Via Pinciana. He pays and walks the remaining distance. He does not approach the front entrance. Instead, he circles to the alley behind the building. From a parked vehicle across the street, a CIA officer radios. Target is moving to rear access. Raven reaches the service entrance. From his pocket, he produces a key, not a pick, an actual key, cut to match the lock. The intelligence is devastating. Someone with access to the safe house has been compromised. The key turns. The door opens. Raven slips inside. He moves through the darkened kitchen. His footsteps are silent on the tile floor. In his hand is a pistol, a Makarov PM fitted with an improvised suppressor. He advances down the corridor toward the main living area where, according to his intelligence, Krasnikov's bedroom is located. The hallway is dark. The house is silent. Raven reaches for the bedroom door handle. The lights come on. 6 CIA officers stand in the corridor, weapons drawn. 2 behind him, blocking retreat. 4 ahead, spread in a tactical formation. In the center stands Thomas Calloway. His weapon is holstered. His hands are visible and empty. His voice is calm. Put down the weapon. It's over. For 3 seconds, Raven does not move. His gun is pointed at the floor. He is calculating odds, angles, possibilities. Then, slowly, he sets the pistol on the carpet and raises his hands. He does not speak. He does not resist. As the officers move in to restrain and search him, his face shows neither fear nor anger, only a professional's recognition that the game has ended. They find a backup weapon in an ankle holster, a knife in his belt. A small leather case containing a syringe and 2 vials of clear liquid. Poison. For close work, when a gunshot would be too loud. Raven is handcuffed and led to a waiting vehicle. The entire arrest takes 90 seconds. By the time the neighborhood's few witnesses realize something has happened, the street is empty again. The shadow has been captured. The interrogation of Raven lasts 6 days. It is conducted in a CIA facility outside Rome, a villa with thick stone walls and no neighbors for a kilometer in any direction. Raven refuses to confirm his real name. He confirms only his code name. He will not identify his KGB handlers. He will not reveal operational details, but he does offer a professional assessment of the operation that caught him. The maid, he says on the 3rd day, at the safe house, she gave me the key to the service entrance. She was paid very well. I assume you will find her. They do. The maid is arrested the following day attempting to board a flight to Athens. In her luggage is $15,000 in cash and a one-way ticket to Moscow via Athens and Sofia. Under questioning, she admits to being a long-time KGB asset. Her job was to provide intelligence on the safe house security measures and to supply the duplicate key. She had no knowledge of the planned assassination. She was told only that the information was for intelligence collection purposes. Raven also confirms what the CIA suspected. He knew he was under surveillance from the 2nd day. The counter-surveillance runs, the church visit, the elaborate routes through the city, all were partly operational and partly testing the skill of his followers. "You were good," he tells Calloway during one session. "Not perfect, but good enough." When asked about Viktor Orlov, the KGB counterintelligence officer who was also following him, Raven smiles for the first time. "Insurance," he says. "The center does not fully trust anyone, especially assassins." Anatoly Krasnikov learns of the assassination attempt only after Raven is in custody. His reaction is not relief, but anger. He accuses the CIA of using him as bait. He demands to know why he was not warned. Calloway explains patiently. If Krasnikov had known, his behavior would have changed. His fear would have been visible, and Raven would have detected the trap. Krasnikov eventually understands, but the incident destroys what remained of his trust in Western intelligence services. He completes his debriefings but refuses further cooperation. 3 months later, he is resettled in Canada under a new identity. He lives there for 12 years before dying of a heart attack in 1990. Raven remains in CIA custody for 8 months. The Italian government is never officially informed of his presence. Legally, he does not exist. In July 1979, he is included in a prisoner exchange. For CIA officers captured in East Germany are traded for 8 Soviet agents held by the West. Raven is one of the 8. The exchange takes place on the Glienicke Bridge, connecting West Berlin to Potsdam. Raven walks across the bridge into East German territory. He does not look back. Within 24 hours, he has vanished into the Soviet system. Western intelligence loses track of him after the exchange. Some reports suggest he was quietly retired and given a pension. Others claim he was executed for operational failure. The truth is never confirmed. The KGB handler who supervised the Rome operation is recalled to Moscow and disappears from the diplomatic circuit. Father Giuseppe Mariani, the priest who served as a support agent, is never arrested. The CIA decides that exposing him would compromise intelligence methods. He continues serving his parish until his death in 1984. The maid who provided the key is given a choice: 5 years in Italian prison or deportation. She chooses deportation and is expelled to Yugoslavia, never to return. In the archives at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, the operation is filed under the cryptonym Roman Holiday. The file contains 214 pages of surveillance logs, photographs, transcripts, and analysis. For 30 years, the file remains classified. It is finally partially declassified in 2008. Though many pages are still redacted, the identities of the CIA officers involved are protected. The true name of Raven is never revealed. The operation becomes a case study in CIA training programs. It is taught as an example of how to conduct multi-day surveillance against a trained adversary. It demonstrates the value of patience, the importance of misdirection, and the necessity of thinking 3 moves ahead of your opponent. But there is one element of the operation that continues to puzzle intelligence analysts, a detail that appears in the classified portions of the file and has never been satisfactorily explained. On November 23rd, 2 days before Raven was arrested, the CIA intercepted a second KGB communication. The message was encoded differently than the first. It was never fully decrypted, but the partial translation suggested something extraordinary. There was a third operation running in Rome at the same time, not targeting Krasnikov, not involving Raven, something else entirely. Some analysts believe the message was disinformation intended to confuse Western intelligence. Others believe it was genuine, that there was a second KGB team in Rome conducting a separate mission. And a few, very quietly, suggest a darker possibility, that the entire Raven operation was a diversion, that while the CIA focused on stopping one assassin, another operation unfolded elsewhere in the city, unseen and successful. The mystery remains unsolved. The files stay closed. Rome has witnessed centuries of secrets. Emperors plotted in marble palaces. Popes schemed in gilded chapels. Artists had coded messages in frescoes that tourists photographed without understanding. In November 1978, another secret was added to the city's collection. For 11 days, 2 intelligence agencies fought an invisible war through streets that had seen war and peace rise and fall for 2,000 years. The tourists who walked past Raven in the Colosseum never knew they had brushed shoulders with a killer. The couples who kissed in the Villa Borghese did not realize they were standing where an assassin conducted reconnaissance. The opera lovers who applauded Tosca had no idea that among them sat men prepared to kill and die for secrets. This is the nature of the shadow world. History happens in the margins, in the spaces between what is seen and what is hidden. The Cold War was fought not only with missiles and tanks, but with patience and cameras and hotel room keys. And the victories were measured not in territory gained, but in lives saved, in operations disrupted, in assassins caught before they could fire. The CIA officers who stopped Raven received no medals. Their names appear on no monuments. Thomas Calloway retired in 1983 and died in 1997. His obituary made no mention of Rome, but somewhere in the classified archives, the truth remains. A story of professionals on both sides playing a game where the stakes were life and death, and the rules were written in invisible ink. Raven walked free in the end, traded back to the Soviet Union. Perhaps he lives still, an old man with secrets he will never tell. Or perhaps he is gone, another ghost among Rome's countless ghosts. The city keeps its secrets, and in the shadows, perhaps, the game continues. The Cold War produced thousands of operations like Operation Roman Holiday, silent battles fought in capital cities around the world, invisible wars where victory meant that nothing happened, that the assassination was prevented, that the secret remained protected. Most of these stories remain classified. The files are sealed for 50 years, 75 years, sometimes forever. But piece by piece, document by document, the truth emerges from the archives. If you want to see more stories from the shadow world of intelligence operations, subscribe to this channel. These are the operations they don't teach in history class, the missions that shaped the world while the world looked elsewhere. And tell me in the comments, should intelligence agencies declassify more Cold War operations now that the participants are retired or dead? Or are some secrets too dangerous to ever be revealed? What other Cold War mysteries would you like to see investigated? The files are waiting. The next story goes even deeper into the operations they tried to bury.